Hello and welcome back to another LSBA Season 8 video. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going through and watching all of the Week 1 battle video replays and just giving light commentary on each. The credit for this idea goes out to Rasha, coach of the Poipoles, who's one of the other content creators for the league this season. As always, I think I've mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but all of my LSBA Season 8 videos will have the links to the other two coaches in the league this season who are also making YouTube content in the description each time, which is Rasha of the Poipoles, who I just mentioned, as well as Jack and the Wenatchee Wobbuffets. Anyways though, so last week he surprised us with a video like this where he watched through all of the Week 1 replays to give commentary, and I just thought it was a really cool idea. Because in our league, we don't have that many content creators. Like I say, this year there's 3 of us making videos. In the past there's been like 0 to maybe 1 or 2. So just a lot of the content doesn't really exist publicly for our league. So I thought this was a cool way to kind of just get the rest of the battles out there and also provide one easy place to kind of watch all of the battles for a week. So if somebody wanted to just really casually, keep up week to week, this is a good way to do that. So there's 2 differences that I'm going to incorporate into my video that compared to how Rasha did it, however. The first one is that I'm going to watch the videos in chronological order as they went throughout the week. That doesn't really make a big difference in as far as viewing order goes. I think Rasha went to our league spreadsheet and kind of just went down the list to the battles are listed in order, specific order there based on the schedule. So that's not a bad way to do it. I just think this way, if as the season progresses, if something interesting happens, like in week 2 for example, there was a battle that happened right down to the wire at the end of the day on Sunday, so stuff like that might be fun to comment on, I figure. And the other difference is that Rasha didn't watch his own battle in his week 1 retrospective, and I am going to go ahead and watch and comment on my own battles for this, just so that all 5 battles each week are included. I understand why he had skipped his own in this case, especially since, just like me, he's doing live commentary videos for each of his battles. So he has a whole 20 or 30 minute video on that particular fight, and so I definitely understand, but again, just so that my version of these can be like a one-stop shop, I think it'd be nice to watch all 5, including my own. Alrighty, so that's enough rambling. So let's get to the first battle of week 1, which was Thick Taco versus Purdy Boy, otherwise known as Rossi and Jack, and the MangoKarp SolgaLeos versus the Wenatchee Wobbuffets. So just quickly looking at the team preview here. On Jack's side, we see some Sticky Web, lead Galvantula, presumably. Jack has a wide array of pretty offensive Pokemon. I guess both of these teams really are kind of balanced builds. On Jack's side, we have Teeny, which is a super offensive threat. Greninja is obviously crazy, especially in our league this year, where unfortunately it got passed such that Greninja can use either Battle Bond or Protein. So it's pretty wild. And then Zarude, as we'll see, is a kind of dark horse this year. Nobody really knew what it was going to do, but it did really well in this battle. And then as far as defenders, though, we have Appleton and Florges, which is really cool. On the opponent's side, we see kind of a similar balanced type composition. We have Lando, which is one of the most versatile Pokemon in OU in general. We have Massive Physical Wall and Chansey. We have what can be assumed to be some sort of defensive pivot Rotom. Then on the offensive side, though, Rossi brought his Mega and Mega Lopunny this week. We have Blacephalon, which is a great offensive threat. It's an Ultra Beast Pokemon, so it gets access to the Beast Boost ability to raise its stats as it starts getting kills, kind of like Moxie. And then Kyurem, apparently this generation, has started to become more and more of a actual OU threat. I know Kyurem's been kind of like a UU-mon for a long time, I think. I could be wrong. But anyway, so pretty good balance. or good team compositions from both players. Just look at a glance, I couldn't tell you who I would think was going to win just from team preview. But without further ado, let's get the battle going. We're gonna see a Mega Lopunny versus Galvantula lead. Galvantula probably has a Focus Sash and wanted to preserve it, so Rossi went ahead and switched out there, which makes a lot of sense. I am really quickly going to just play the battle on slow, I think, so I have more time to kind of talk over each turn. So what happened? Fake out into Zarude. Zarude predicted the Lopunny switch out and went for U-turn, okay. Which is smart, and especially since Zarude had its attack lowered by Intimidate, that makes a lot of sense. Jacksaw suitable to go for Sticky Webs at this point, which was a relatively safe time to do so. We see Galvantula go down to 1% there, so I don't know. It didn't say that Focus Sash procced, but presumably it had one. Okay, so Zarude is a nice, safe switch in there. In fact, I think we're gonna even go down to really slow. This is still kind of fast. So this is where Zarude starts to build momentum, which will continue throughout the match. Granted, that was a critical hit Power Whip, so it did more damage than it otherwise would have, but that was still big damage. Okay, never mind. Really slow is too slow. Anyways, just having seen this battle a couple times before, the spoiler version is that Zarude ends up doing a whole bunch of work this week. We're gonna see it just casually do a decent chunk to Chansey, honestly, considering it was intimidated. Chansey's gonna go for some healing stuffs, which, you know, is as Chansey do. And between Zarude and Victini, both with U-turn, Jack's got some really good offensive pivoting going on here. Meanwhile, on Rossi's side, he's not doing bad this match, but I know in one of the other week 1 reaction videos, it had been mentioned that Landorus probably got sacked a little too early here. Again, just watching it casually, I can't really say whether or not I feel like Lando went down too early. Maybe it did. What I can say for sure, especially as an offensive player myself who likes to make use of offensive pivots like U-turn, is that Jack has done an amazing job this match of keeping up that offensive momentum with lots of pivotal, well predicted, well-read U-turns going on. So we see here Florges is going for Wish. We're going to keep Zarude healthy so it can continue to do all sorts of big damage to Rossi's team here. Here Zarude reveals that as close combat, so close combat honestly does a number to all of Rossi's team at this point. 3 of its mons are weak to close combat, and the only one that's not is Rotom here, which still takes a big chunk. Right, so at that point we're going to go ahead and see Zarude switch out, because its defenses started getting lowered. So even though, you know, it can close combat anything on the team, if it can't 2-hit KO something, you don't really want to stay in and risk your Zarude taking a bunch of damage that it doesn't have to after it starts lowering its defenses, I think. We see there that Appleton is a very, very tanky boy. Return coming off of Mega Lopunny is definitely no slouch. And there we see it also take the Ice Punch relatively well due to its thick fat ability. Despite being a 4 times super effective attack, it still only took like 37%. No, it was 41%, but even so, just takes that so well. Thick fat's disgusting. Alrighty, this will be the last time that I change the speed for a while. We're actually going to go back to normal. I don't really feel like I need to do a turn-by-turn commentary necessarily. I'm going to try and take more of the Rasha approach and do kind of just an overall commentary as things happen. So at this point in the match, we see that we have a defensive mon showdown where Rotom and Florges are kind of facing off. So Rotom is spamming Thunder Wave here, despite the fact that Florges is already paralyzed. Not wanting Jack to be able to get a free switch into anything else, because all three of Jack's other Mons are relatively fast threats. Greninja and Zarude both have a lot of natural speed, and I can't remember if we saw at this point if Victini was Choice Scarf or not, but I know that they often are run that way. So the idea here, even though it's not very productive on Rossi's part, is to just keep going for the Thunder Wave so that Jack can't freely switch out, I guess? I don't know. This is a little ballsy of a play even for me. I guess Rotom does have the Pain Split too, so it has some self-sustain in that way. I believe here, though, is where... Oh, maybe not quite yet. I was gonna say, I think this is where Zarude's gonna just pick up tons of momentum, but we're not quite there yet. Zarude does get yet another kill, though. Here, Victini is going to start just punching holes in things. Victini is really strong. The only downside to V-Create, which Victini is using right now, is that it lowers its speed and defenses, so it's a really high-risk, high-reward move. We can see here that if you switch into it, something can die since its attack stays high. But as you slowly get slower and slower, and your defenses get crippled, something like Lopunny can come in and really threaten you out with even a Fake Out. You know, if your defenses are like halved or whatever, a Fake Out will do a ton of damage. Alrighty, so here's the point where Zarude's just going to go ahead and clean up the match, basically. And again, we'll see it make one more, whatchamacallit, switch out there, just because its defenses were lowered with close combat. So again, Lopunny with its strong stab Fake Out could potentially do way too much damage to Zarude at that point. So that was a great match, pretty close, came down to a 2-0 here. The most notable thing about this match is even though it wasn't like a sweep, it was spread out a lot, but Zarude ended up getting 5 out of 6 of the KOs in this matchup, which was pretty crazy. It was well at the top of the week 1 leaderboards as far as kills go. Alrighty, so then on to the next match. We have David, coach of the Denver Disco Daves, facing off against Azoth, coach of the Mauville? I don't know, that one city from Hoenn, the Mauville Manectrics. So, just looking at team preview really quickly, David this year drafted a pretty competent rain team. He's got the Pelipper, Mega Swampert core going on, he's got some electric types, including a special electric type like Zapdos, which can potentially take advantage of things like Thunder and Hurricane. Celesteela appreciates the rain because it takes the sting off of fire moves for it, and the same could be said of Tapu Bulu here. Meanwhile, on the Azoth side, we have more of just another kind of balanced and or bulky offense kind of team going on here. We have some really bulky Mons like Bronzong, Jellicent, and Snorlax. Can all be... Well, Jellicent and Snorlax can be offensive, but they're all bulky and often support type Pokemon. We have our really slow Special Wall Breaker and Vikavolt here. Rillaboom. We have dueling grassy terrains this week. Rillaboom is often a good priority kind of wall break. It's a wall breaker and revenge killer. Grassy Glide in grassy terrain with the priority boost makes it pretty good at revenge killing as well. And then we have our Speedy Boy and Tornadus T here. So let's go ahead and start this matchup. So we're going to see a Celesteela Vikavolt lead, which is rather unfortunate for our opponent, David. Well, I guess not our opponent, for David there. Azoth made the correct read and went ahead and went for Bug Buzz instead of the electric attack into, you know, Celesteela up front. The reason being there is that Zeraora has Volt Absorb, so if Azoth had gone for an electric move, then it wouldn't have done any damage. Instead, he got a nice early turn 1 KO there. We see here that our opponent, or both teams, have similar setup this week. Both teams are rocking dual screens, both teams are rocking stealth rocks, so they have very similar setup basically. Both trying to just maneuver their offensive threats into a good position from which they can you know, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like, muscle their offensive Pokemon through with less worry. That Woodhammer crit on Tornadus Therian was unfortunate. Reflect wasn't up at this point in the match, so I'm not sure exactly how much that mattered, but, you know, obviously a crit into a grass type crit into a flying type is always a little unfortunate. So here more turns go by where they're just maintaining their screens, maintaining their setup. David brought Brick Break in case Azoth did bring screens, which he did, but Azoth has a Ghost type here, which blocks Brick Break, which is great for him. He says, no, you cannot take my screens down, don't even try it. There goes some U-turn action on David's part for that offensive momentum. And then this turn was really unfortunate, so David gets another crit kill there. That one was a crit through Reflect, though. I think that probably did matter. Swampert's really strong, and Hammer Arm is a strong move, but Snorlax is super bulky, and Reflect was up. I don't think that was the OHKO. That was definitely a 2-hit KO scenario, but man, David with the crits here this week. So Athos kind of on his back foot at this point. I mean, it's definitely not over until it's over, but just those 2 crit kills that David got kind of early-ish in the match here were really, really big for him. I think in Jack's commentary video, he had mentioned how losing Zeraora right off the bat wasn't too bad, just because David had packed Zapdos as well, which has similar coverage in Electric, obviously. Electric Flying is good against this team in general. Okay, so I missed it a couple turns ago, but one thing that was really crazy in this matchup is that Azoth brought Fling on his Rillaboom. He flung his Assault Vest a couple turns ago. I just saw my comment in the chat go by a couple seconds ago commenting on it. That's some real Mad Lad strats right there, definitely dig, but we see later on that apparently the Rillaboom had acrobatics for that. Which I guess makes sense. If you fling and then acrobatics, that's something that gives Rillaboom something they can do to Tapu Bulu, but still pretty crazy. That's ballsier than I've brought in the past, I think. There, Vikavolt goes for a big, powerful Thunder into Zapdos to KO it in the rain, which is pretty great. But then he goes for Thunder again into Swampert, which is a little questionable. I guess he was going for like the big brain plays, but since David had just hard swapped Swampert in after a KO, I guess I'm not sure what he thought David was going to double out into at that point. Anyways, here we'll see where acrobatics is being carried on Rillaboom, specifically for the Tapu Bulu matchup, most likely. Otherwise, I'm not super familiar with Rillaboom's moveset, but I'm assuming it can't do that much to Tapu Bulu otherwise. Unfortunately, Vikavolt was at low enough HP that it just came in and died on rocks. I'm not sure if Azoth had any hazard removal in this game. His Tornadus might have had it, honestly, when it got crit killed like 10 turns into the match or whatever. So at this point, David has very much won. And in fact, Azoth is going to just forfeit here this next turn, I believe. There was a comment in Rasha's reaction video wherein he had pointed out that if Azoth had been carrying Iron Defense Body Press on this, he wouldn't have been able to win at this point. Like, there's no way that I would have been able to get through the other 2 Pokemon in Swampert and Celesteela, but he might have been able to pick up a KO against the Pelipper, or otherwise force David to switch out or something. Overall a good match though. This was a 3-0, so definitely not bad. Azoth played well, but we see the strength of David's synergies that he has going on here. It's also been commented on how typically in our league, Rodney, the coach of the Florida Feraligatrs, typically is the one who drafts Rain. But if I'm being honest, like, he usually drafts Rain just because he likes water types and not because he likes to use Rain synergies that much. So I think David's team is definitely going to be one to watch out for this year because David drafted Rain and the synergies to go with it, so he's already got kind of a strategic leg up on how Rodney usually does Rain. Which doesn't matter this year. I mean, Rodney did draft Politoed, but he didn't draft a Rain team. He just drafted Politoed because he likes Politoed, which, you know, I can support that. But anyways, very good match, very good match. Let's go on to battle number 3. This one was Dylan, coach of the Dolando Donphans, versus Rasha, coach of the Potown Poipoles. So we see a team preview here. Dylan has a sand team going on, so the primary synergy here being Sandstream, Tyranitar, and Sand Rush. What's the thing? Dracozolt? Yeah. I'm privy to the knowledge, and we'll see this later in the match too, that Gastrodon was actually a Sand Force Gastrodon too, just for the unexpected element there. Then we've got his Mega Altaria, Alcremie, and Alakazam. Meanwhile, Rasha drafted a pretty strong, mostly stall, very, very bulky oriented team this year. So we see a Skarmobliss, he's got the Clefable, he's got the Quagsire, he's got what could be... I don't know if we can assume just from team preview that this is a bulky Arcanine or not. And then like Buzzwole here, though, this is like main muscle in this fight, so let's see how this goes. Dylan's going to lead Alcremie against Arcanine here. So we see that this Arcanine actually has some offensive coverage, so maybe it's not a bulky variant, honestly. Well, no, here goes the Reflect, though. This has got kind of an interesting set. So we've seen Reflect Ironhead in close combat so far. It's kind of a mixed bag. Do we see leftovers? We do not see leftovers. So Dylan is going to make kind of a questionable... Oh no, because the Dracozolt was in before the Quagsire. I was like, that's kind of sketchy. But yeah, no, Quagsire, on the contrary, was a good switch into Dracozolt. You can just stand there all day and take those. We see here that Gastrodon isn't Storm Drain because it takes damage from Scald. Which then makes it an interesting choice that it went for Scald against Quagsire, because Earth Power in the Sand with Sand Force will be a little more powerful. It is able to win the Water Ground Showdown there, though, which is pretty cool. We see Weather Ball Tech, which in the Sand becomes a boosted power Rock-type move, which is very cool, very cool. I'm not sure that Gastrodon has fantastic rock coverage otherwise, so that is a cool tech. I'm a big fan of Weather Ball in draft leagues, actually. Just to reminisce a little bit, there was a time several years ago where I was fighting against an opponent that had a lot of rock weakness, so I ran Sandstorm, Aerodactyl, and Weather Ball in my Roserade to just like hit their rock weak Pokemon a lot. So this is another thing that I really appreciated about Rasha's team this week, is that he has all these bulky Pokemon, but they have kind of like offensive-ish like movesets, like this Blissey, instead of just being fat, is like going for Shadow Balls. It's got counter behind Reflect to like KO offensive mons. This is the kind of bulky like wall type movesets that I can get behind. Honestly, we see Skarmory comes out and uses Night Slash. What a mad lad. So we see that on this team, one of Arcanine's primary purposes seems to be to set up Reflex, as we've seen it come in and do that multiple times, even when it just switches out right away thereafter. What was that? Nugget came in and used Cotton Guard a lot, so I'm not sure what purpose Cotton Guard is serving here outside of just general bulk. Okay, we do see that this has Roost, so that makes a lot of sense. That way, if you're anticipating a lot of offensive threats, you can potentially get your defense up really high, and then, you know, sit on the opponent. Unfortunately though, I don't know if that was only a special Altaria or not. I guess it must have been, because the problem with that is that if your opponent has a... Okay, I need to pause really quick. We're gonna go back and talk about that turn in a minute. The problem with going with a defensive, like, buffing set like that is if your opponent can wall the Pokemon with one of their Pokemon, like, really easily, like, in this case, if that's a special Altaria and they have one of the premier special walls in the game, Blissey, then you have to watch out for like setting up before the Blissey's gone, because otherwise, you know, you can spend all those turns cotton guarding, but it doesn't matter if your opponent just comes in and walls your special attacks anyways. Just food for thought. So turns 27 and 28 were pretty wild. So we have Alchemy in against Blissey. Blissey switches out, Alchemy sets up Misty Terrain, and then Arcanine goes for Iron Head, which is coverage for fairy types, and it goes for Misty Explosion. This mad lad be out here setting up his own terrain. He doesn't have Tapu Fini or Galarian Weezing, but he's setting up his own terrain so that he can Misty Explode to the best of his ability. Unfortunately, this seems to be at least somewhat of a bulky Arcanine. If nothing else, it resists special moves. Or no, not special moves. It resists fairy type moves. So that only did 45%, unfortunately, but I appreciate the moxie. We got at least one explosion in this week. So here comes Alakazam. We're gonna see a critical hit only deal like 30% to Skarmory, which makes sense. Psyshock is a special move, but it deals physical damage, so Skarmory being a mega physical wall is just gonna take that super easily. Altaria is limited in what it can do to Clefable as well. I can't use Dragon Stabs. I'm kind of surprised that we didn't see some sort of Fairy Stab on Altaria, though. I don't know that it would have done that much more than Flamethrower, but it would have done some amount more, just due to Stab increasing the amount of damage that attacks do. Unfortunately there, Alakazam tried to take one last stand against Blissey. Hitting it with Psyshock was actually good for Blissey, because Blissey has higher special defense. But unfortunately it lived with like 4% HP and got revenge killed by Shadow Ball. So this match was a little less close than the previous two. This was a 4-0, but it's still a good match. That's, I think... I'll say this again during week 2, but just the thing with a lot of Dylan's team building traditionally, and this has gone back for multiple seasons, is that he likes to try a lot of unique and like interesting strategies, but if there's one criticism that I would give, it's that they're not always well like matched up against the opponent that he's fighting against. Sometimes he just makes up like a cool strategy and just slaps it on a team against somebody who can like hard shut down said strategy. But, you know, if it's fun, it's fun. Don't worry about it. Having fun is the most important thing. Alright, so on to the 4th battle. This time we have Bidoofer, aka Jacob, coach of the Port Angeles Teddiursas, versus Taco, coach of the New Guinea Goodras. So, on Jacob's side, we have Volcarona, Electrode, Runerigus, Mega Garchomp, Heracross, and Caesar. And then on Taco's side, we have Mega Mawile, Ferrothorn, Darmanitan, Crawdaunt, Azumarill, and Heatran. So Taco's team is kind of janky. It's like half Steel type and then half like miscellaneous other types. And so we'll see that Jacob came prepared with a lot of like anti-Steel type stuff, and that ultimately becomes Taco's downside, but Taco, okay, let's talk about their team compositions though. Jacob overall has a very offensive lineup going here. It's probable or potential and likely that this is a bulkier Scizor, just looking at how offensive the rest of his team is. Runerigus is traditionally pretty defensive and or support mon. But Heracross is a big hitter, Mega Garchomp is a big hitter, Electrode is a speedy revenge killer, and then Volcarona has setup sweep potential, so I dig how offensive this team is. This is a good team. And then on Taco's side, we also have quite a lot of offensive threats. We have Ferrothorn as the main defensive backbone, it looks like, on the squad, but otherwise we have Mega Mawile, an offensive powerhouse, Darmanitan's very strong, Crawdaunt has the potential to be very strong with adaptability, Azumarill with huge power, and then on this type of team I would expect the Heatran to be somewhat defensive and or just bulky perhaps, but we shall see. Okay, so this is actually one of my favorite moments of the entire week. So Taco, by admission, is not familiar with what Runerigus is or does. So we see Wandering Spirit activate turn 1. So Azumarill winds up with Wandering Spirit, and Runerigus gets huge power. And then it starts going for Iron defenses so that it can take Azumarill's now not like huge power boosted attacks much better. And it's making sure not to make physical contact with Azumarill with Earthquake too, so it doesn't get Wandering Spirit back. That was just such a cool moment. Like, that was just a beautifully crafted Azumarill counter. But we are going to see Heatran come in and take out the Runerigus there. But this ends up being a very short battle. Heatran rightly switches out of Heracross early on, but we're gonna see this Scarf Moxie Heracross just earthquake its way through Taco's very weak to ground team. See, at this point, if Taco had Crab Hammer, I don't know if that would have done enough damage actually. Because knockoffs resisted, Crab Hammer might have been able to do enough to take it out, Crab Hammer and then Aqua Jet since it lived. But as is, Heracross just gets a very clean sweep. So this was our other 5 kill mon this week. The first one was Rude in the first battle. But then Jacob came in hot here with Heracross, juice question mark, and just juiced Taco's team here, which was very cool. As an offensive player, I approve of this transgression. And then last but certainly not least, I can't remember if Rodney and I played on... I'm going to switch sides, our team's on the bottom here. I can't remember if we played on Friday or Thursday, but I was surprised that we were the last battle, actually. Typically in our league, a lot of fights will happen on the weekend, so the fact that everybody got their battles in early was definitely interesting. So I brought, well, I'm not going to go in depth on my team building, I have a video for that, but we have Mega Medicham, Ribombee, Regieleki, Milotic, Nidoking, and Weavile versus Tapu Koko, Terrakion, Volcanion, Mega Blastoise, Kyurem Black, and Serperior. So just a overall analysis, we see that our opponent's team here is like very bulky offense. Tapu Koko and Serperior aren't really that bulky, but like all 4 of these other mons can take a hit pretty well. It's just a very offensive team. It's a different kind of offense, whereas I am focusing more on like speedy offense with like Weavile and Regieleki. My opponent's trying to take a hit and hit back really hard, which, you know, I respect. Music off. Okay, here we go. So this lead I totally read. If you go back and watch my video, you'll see as much. See, I wasn't sure from Team Preview if this would be a lead Terrakion or not, but I figured it might be, and I didn't think that we actually needed Ribombee's sticky webs that much. And I didn't have any hazard removal on my team, so I wanted to absolutely prevent Terrakion from throwing Stealth Rocks up if I could. The screen's Tapu Koko took me by surprise a lot. I was planning to just sack Weavile there. But, you know, after I saw Tapu Koko start doing supportive stuff, I'm like, okay, we can make some plays into Nidoking here. Nidoking is just going to be a menace now. That Leaf Storm miss was huge for me. Like, again, I commented on this on my joke video, which is unlisted, but it's in my Season 8 playlist. It was a reaction to the reaction to the reaction, but... I think that I definitely wouldn't have been able to have as high of a differential if Nidoking had gone down to Serperior like it should have, but I think I still could have eked out a win. As is, we're going to see Nidoking cleanly take out Serperior, pretty much take out Volcanion to the point where Regieleki can come in and easily KO it. And by this point we are 5 mons versus 2, so we're sitting very pretty here. So at this point, like, the main concern that I had was what item the Kyurem would have. I knew that if it was Choice Scarfed, I would have to be careful since I didn't get my webs down at all during this game. I'd considered trying to go out into Ribombee at some point to set, like, late game webs up, but I ended up not finding a chance to do so. Here I'm playing defensively for like the first time in my life, so I brought Toxic specifically for an instance like this. But I'd actually intended to flip turn out the first turn there. Because my opponent kept flinching me, I eventually just went for recover. We managed to Toxic Stall Mega Blastoise down to a nice revenge killable range there. I'm gonna pause the video here. Both Jack and Rasha gave me crap about not realizing that the Kyurem Black was most likely, if not for sure, choice banned here. It's because I don't run defensive calculations. I just saw that my defensive wall took that much damage, and I'm like, well, I guess let's just Kyurem Black be strong. I guess it just did that much damage, but apparently I've been told that if Kyurem Black does that much to a defensive Milotic, then it's banded. So I could have switched into Ribombee on this following turn. Yeah, I'm just sorry, I got lost in thought there. Because, like, so what happens is I just let my low tick go down here. Because I was like, no big deal, no big deal. Here I throw in Ribombee. The Kyurem Black runs away, which was fine. Because I figured if it was locked into a dragon move, that was a pretty safe send-in. But then what I was stressing about here is I'm like, oh no. Because if this Kyurem is choice scarfed, then it could potentially Icicle Spear me through my Focus Sash. I'm pretty sure it still would have been okay. I had Fake Out on both Weavile and Medicham, as well as Ice Shard. So even if it was choice locked into Icicle Spear, I'm pretty sure it could have just like Fake Out shuffled using Regieleki as collateral. But I'm glad I didn't have to. It was not choice scarfed, so Ribombee just outsped and KO'd. Easy peasy. And so I won this battle with a 4-0. Just like the 4-0 that we saw before with Dylan and Rasha, as well as the 5-0 here with Jacob and Taco. We had several high-scoring games this week, which was kind of surprising. But yeah, so that was week 1. Pretty good week. Nothing too crazy happened. I didn't have like any necessary expectations of how I thought any of these battles would go, but we didn't see any too crazy strategies. I feel like everybody just put their best foot forward for the most part. We got to see some strong showings from everybody. We got to see how people's team archetypes are coming together. Lots of balanced teams, lots of bulky offense. We got to see David's reign in full effect here right out the gate. That'll be scary to look at her fight against in the future, rather. We saw Rasha pull out some cool tricks with his stall team, actually, so we'll see in the next week's video recap that Rasha does intend to go pure stall sometimes, or at least run his mons like in their more typically stally fashion. But here we saw that he's not afraid to experiment. We saw things like Shadow Ball counter Blissey. We saw things like Night Slash Skarmory. We saw defensive Pokemon going for kills, which I'm a big fan of. We're gonna have to see how Taco bounces back from his sketchy team draft. I'm not gonna lie, drafting half steel types was definitely a risky decision, especially when some of his other mons like Darmanitan are also weak to common types. Darmanitan's weak to ground, like all the steel types. Crawdon's weak to fighting, like all the steel types. We're gonna have to see how Taco pulls it back after this. Strong showing from Jacob week 1 though. And then, like, honestly, I'm surprised I did so well against Rodney's team here. I really thought he was going to bring one or both of Hawlucha and Alolan Raichu this week, so I was very glad that he didn't. Especially the Raichu staying home allowed me to not have to worry about webs early on, and I could just go for an offensive lead with Weavile. So, yeah, solid week. Thanks for watching. I will stop rambling at this point. And I think my next video will be my week 2 recap, similar in style to this one for the week 2 battles. And then after that, my week 3 battle should be coming up in a couple days here against Dolando, or Dylan of the Dolando Donphans, so look forward to that. Okay, enough rambling this time for sure. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!